Okay, welcome to our video lecture on outbreaks, pandemics, and epidemics. This is what your notes look like. They can be found inside your notebook. You're going to be following along with my PowerPoint. It doesn't look exactly like your notes, but you will be filling in the blanks with the information right here. You're also going to be labeling this arrow, and it stands for intensity. So the intensity of the disease or outbreak, as we go further up towards pandemic, it becomes more and more severe. So your intensity is increasing, which is what you'll put in this arrow right here. So let's get started. Today we're going to be doing our notes, and then we'll also review the contagion lab. You're going to watch this video. I put the link up for you inside your assignment so that you can watch it as well. It is the difference between epidemics and outbreaks. So you're going to write down 5 facts that you learned from this video. That's your bell ringer. We don't have any vocab today. So pandemics, epidemics, and outbreaks, what's the difference? An outbreak is a sudden increase in the occurrence of diseases in a particular time or place. An epidemic is the rapid spread of a disease to a large number of people in a given population within a short period of time. So an outbreak, it just suddenly happens, right? There's suddenly more cases than we would think. An epidemic is when it starts to spread to a larger number of people in a given population or a region. So it might be more specified to a region. So maybe it's in the state of North Carolina, whereas an outbreak, maybe it was just in the school of Emory. But an epidemic might be in all of Bladen County, or it might be even further out into the whole state of North Carolina. A pandemic, though, as we know, is a disease that has spread across a large region, for instance, multiple continents or worldwide. So last year, if you were studying this might not have been very significant to you, but as we start to live through the days of coronavirus, this is becoming more and more firsthand knowledge that you have here for this lesson, which doesn't happen every day. So we do know that with the COVID, we are living through a pandemic. It has spread. It started in China and it spread across Europe, the closer regions, and eventually it came over to the United States. So we're going to learn about the spread of it and maybe why it was able to do that. But today's kind of about comparing and contrasting outbreak, epidemics, and pandemics. So an outbreak is a sudden rise in the number of cases of a disease. An outbreak may occur in a community or geographical area or may affect several countries. It may last for a few days or weeks or even several years. Some outbreaks of a disease are expected each year, such as flu. So every year we know that during the winter time we are going to have outbreaks of the flu. And we know this, right? We expect it. The outbreaks are a little bit more expected. They're sudden rise, right? With winter, we get more flu cases. We know that. It doesn't spread. It's pretty much localized to wherever the outbreak is. It'll spread from person to person in that area, but it might not spread like super far, like into different counties or countries. They're just kind of isolated cases. So if you will, with this world right here, you're going to be drawing in the dots on your own notes. So you're going to put a couple yellow dots in here in your worlds. Okay, let's go back. Yellow dots refer to the infected population. So this is an outbreak. An epidemic, if we're increasing in severity or intensity a little bit. An epidemic is an illness or a health-related issue that is showing up in more cases than we would normally expect. So we expect to see some flu cases every year. What we did not expect to see this year with COVID is to see the rise spread of COVID, just more cases than we could expect. It occurs when infected diseases spread more rapidly to many people. So if you can see our little graph right here, if the yellow dots are infected populations, we have a lot more infected populations in the area. Compared to this, we had very isolated populations and outbreaks. They're very centered geographically, and there's a lot more of them. Some epidemics that we have right now, one of them is HIV and AIDS. So the STI is what we call them now. The STI, HIV, and AIDS has been an epidemic for a very long time. It affects many people, and we do see more cases than we would normally expect with those. So it's why they started developing things like, they don't have a vaccine that prevents it, but they have one that'll help decrease your chances. It's why we have other preventative measures as well. So again, an epidemic occurs when an infectious disease spreads rapidly to many people. So this is an epidemic is kind of where we start thinking, we didn't expect this to happen. An outbreak we expect to happen, right? Or it's not all of them, but some of them we do expect to happen. But an epidemic, you scientists or whoever's studying it, health officials, they kind of look and they're like, we didn't expect that. We're starting to get a little bit more worried, right? Because we didn't expect this, so maybe we aren't prepared to handle it. So this is the video, How a Pandemic Spreads, is also on your Canvas course, on your assignment page. Please watch it if you would. This is going to help you really compare and contrast epidemics and pandemics. If you'll write a Venn diagram, which is those two overlapping circles, write epidemic on one, pandemic on the other, and try to write down the different facts about each of them. So this is a TED Ed talk. It's about 8 minutes, so it's kind of long, but it really helps you kind of understand why we are in the place that we are, why we do have a pandemic, and how technology, like the international travel and technology, has really kind of allowed this pandemic to spread further, and how we might not have been as prepared as we could have been for a disaster such as this. So go ahead and write that down. Take some time to compare and contrast that. And then a pandemic is the most severe of what we have. It is spread, so indicates a far higher number of people affected than an epidemic. So many, many more people have the disease. Pandemic also refers to how much larger the region is that is affected. So in the most extreme cases, the entire global population would be affected by a pandemic. This is what we're seeing today, right, with the coronavirus. The COVID has spread. It started in China, made its way across Europe, proximity-wise, and then eventually spread over into North and South America. Again, the yellow dots refer to the population. Please draw that on. So if you can see, we have clusters of the disease all over the world, right? This is the most severe of the terminology that we use for a disease spreading or a disease outbreak. This is the most people that are being affected, and then this is the largest region that's being affected. So with epidemic, we had a lot of cases in a smaller geographic area. A pandemic, we have many, many more cases, and it's spread even further than this. So we're increasing in severity, increasing in intensity. This is your arrow at the bottom of your notes right here, increasing in severity and increasing in intensity. Okay, so make sure you're copying down this. Sorry, we already watched this one. So these are your notes today. We're going to spend some more time just studying. We'll look at some different case studies of these diseases, of just like an outbreak one, an epidemic one, and a pandemic one. We're going to study them pretty well, and kind of get the idea down that an outbreak is something that we expected. Most often we expected, and it's very isolated in area, and it doesn't affect that many people. Once we start impacting more people in a greater geographic area and starting to see what we didn't expect, the numbers that we didn't expect, it becomes an epidemic. And then it steps up even further into a pandemic when it affects a very large region of the world, possibly in the most extreme cases worldwide, like we have with COVID. And it affects many more people than an epidemic. So pandemic is the most severe of types of diseases that we have. We have had pandemics in the past, like the Black Plague was a pandemic. Epidemics, we had like the influenza. We've a couple of cases of the influenza epidemics, but the one that comes on the top of my head is the 1918 one that killed many people. And like I said, we have outbreaks of diseases each year. Outbreaks could also even be like if I had a cold or if you had a cold and you came to school and then you sneezed, and maybe we weren't wearing masks because this was before Corona, and everybody got sick because, you sneezed and it got us all sick. Or it could be, an outbreak could be something like maybe Miss Backover made cupcakes that weren't so good and they had some bacteria in it that caused food poisoning, and then our whole class got sick. That would be an example of an outbreak. There was an outbreak of food poisoning in Miss Backover's room, and it affected our population, but it didn't affect anybody else. So that's an outbreak. Maybe if I shared those cupcakes with all of our building, with 7th grade and 9th grade as well, and then they also got sick, then maybe it would be considered an epidemic if we're talking about the whole world as our whole Emory school. So the outbreak was when it was just in our classroom. The epidemic is when it's just in our building, the 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. And then maybe I shared them with the rest of the school as well, and then eventually everybody in the school got sick. Maybe that's what we would consider a pandemic if we were thinking that Emory was our whole wide world. Okay, I hope that helped. If you have any questions, please email me. Really watch those videos. They're really going to help solidify what we've talked about today. Make sure you take your notes, take a picture of them, and submit them to Canvas when you're done. Have a great day, guys.